We're recording. You're listening to the Tune Up and Jam podcast. Ready? Go.
We're back once again. This is Tune Up and Jam episode number 34. Just keep cranking them out, guys.
Tune Up and Jam.
All right, tune up, turn up, get down, jam. We're back to
Yep.
hello and buonasera. That's a pretty easy one.
Buonasera. Go ahead, Chris. Give it a
buonasera.
shot.
Buonasera.
Italian.
Yeah, Italian for good evening.
No, I meant give it a shot.
Buonasera.
Oh, no, I'm even more Midwest than him. I can't do any kind of.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. You know, sometimes I get the accents and sometimes I don't. But anyway,
Remember when we first started doing this? Rich will start just breaking out his greetings.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where's he going with
Hey,
this?
what the hell is this all
What the
about?
hell is he
Yeah.
doing?
Now there's a pattern. I can't not do it now.
Now it's his
Yeah,
thing.
I was going to say.
That's my
yeah.
thing, man. I
We
established
could
the thing.
totally change the concept or the format of this whole thing, and he's just going to have to do it.
Yeah, it's just the thing now, man. It's just like, you know, I don't know. I had to come up with something interesting. I don't even know if it's interesting, but I like it. If you guys don't like it, I don't care.
What was it? We just didn't know how to tell him, right? How was that weird?
And by
Nah,
then,
just
but
kidding.
yeah, and now it's too late. Now it's too late. It's part of it
We're
now.
34 episodes in.
Yeah, and it's just
there's
embedded.
no changing it now.
It's embedded in there.
Yeah, at some point, we are going to have to migrate to the video format.
Yeah,
I think
you
it'll be
keep saying
fun
that.
and a lot of things we could do, but just for right now, it's just a little too much. We just have our, little operation here.
What we do need is a heavy duty makeup artist first before we get on any
kidding.
kind of camera because
Some
nobody
sort
wants
of
to really.
wardrobe. I'd
Yeah.
hope.
No. Have you seen the people on YouTube? Come on.
Well, yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Even
True.
still.
Anyways, back again.
Yeah.
Here we are. What you up to?
Oh, I had an interesting. This is just real quick, but I had an interesting turnaround of two different gigs last week.
I always like your stories, by the way. You always come back having a gig with it.
Wait till the second story I have. But the first one's just a short one about an interesting event that happened. In last episode, actually, we talked about traffic also. And in a way, traffic helped me get a gig this year. Or this year. So the first gig, a mutual friend of Chris and I called me up, about a month ago and said, "Hey, can you do a gig with my uncle?" His uncle was playing a gig. And I was like, sure, if I'm available. He gave me the dates and I did it. I was available. I was like, sure, I'll do it. And our friend was playing bass. He usually plays guitar, but he's playing bass. And then his uncle does like country, some blues, stuff like that, nothing major. And it's his uncle and actually his uncle's buddy. And he just shot me off a bunch of songs that they planned on playing. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. That's cool, And it ended up being like at an Elks Lodge kind of thing down south. And it turned out, these two guys they play guitar together like it's a duo, but they never played with a drummer before, ever. It was the first time ever playing with a drummer, right? So, it was fun. It was kind of cool to kind of like help them out and. It was their first gig at this place too. Like it was really their first gig as a band with anything. So it was kind of cool to be there to help them, back them up. But that's not the interesting part of the story. Actually, the interesting part
Thank
to me
God.
was, I know, because it wasn't that interesting. It wasn't that interesting. No. While I was sitting in traffic to get there, because it took me about 2.5 hours to get there when it should take 45 minutes. That's LA traffic for you. I just happened to be looking at my Google Maps just to see how much longer I had to get there, right? And instantly, right at that time, I get a message from another guy in a different band who, in this band, is like known as being a super proggy type, highly technical and well respected, I guess, among some local musicians and, fans. Telling me they had an emergency need for a drummer the next day.
Oh, nice.
And so while I'm, heading down to this, I have one gig one night where I'm playing with somebody who's never had any experience. And then within 24 hours, I'm playing this other gig with these guys, emergency. and I had to learn some things too within 24 hours. So I thought that was just kind of interesting to share. That's all I have.
The difference.
But I mean, like the difference was really crazy.
The swing.
Yeah,
was pretty
yeah.
large.
It was really. I wouldn't say stressful, but I haven't been that focused on playing, intensely focused on playing in a long time.
Did you have any rehearsal with either of them?
No,
I mean,
neither
sorry.
one of them.
Of course not the second
First
one,
time
but,
ever, yeah.
but for the ones that didn't have any experience with
No,
drummers?
never. I didn't have any experience.
So it was just on the gig.
Both of them I showed up and played. Yeah.
And did it really show that they had no experience with a drummer? Or
I mean, they were able to play along just fine. They had problems with volume control with their own, they're used to just playing acoustic guitar and singing. And it's not like I played loud or anything. I only basically just played with hot rods a lot of the night. But that's still, they were having problems projecting, with their vocals and, stuff like that. But they played along. I didn't play anything. First of all, it's not difficult music. I just played, little beats behind, little shuffles and, basic blues stuff. So it wasn't really that difficult. It was more the volume control and dynamics that go along with it,
Right.
So.
That raises an interesting thing amongst musicians of being a pickup musician or a hired gun, but I wouldn't even. Hired gun is one thing. A pickup musician at kind of a smaller local level is another thing, and how to be good and be proficient isn't necessarily the same skills, all the same skills as just being a good musician. Doing pickup gigs, I think, is a lot of fun.
What do you mean, like a pickup gig?
What you're talking about, like a group of people that you don't necessarily play with, or a group of people you don't play with in that configuration, or you don't play those same songs, or some people that you know or don't know that need an emergency sub or a one-off, things like that. So being a pickup player where you go in and you may have charts, you may have music, you may not. Might just be somebody telling you the key and let's roll, or sending you a song list before, has a different set of skills than if you're playing with your own band. And first and foremost of those has to be kind of a fearless attitude, I think, and going in and being confident and being a little fearless.
The willingness to say, yes, I'll do it.
Yep. And have some experience. I think it does it. I think it's a different kind of experience to be able to do that.
Yeah, that was definitely whenever I got the text message from the one who said they needed me in an emergency. Their drummer got sick. He just said, our drummer's sick, show must go on. Can you do it? And I was just like, well, it's like, I don't know a whole lot of your stuff, but I'm willing to listen, you know what I mean? And tell me how we're going to go about this and we'll do it, and then that was a little, it took a little bit because I know these guys play some stuff that's not easy to play. They have I mean, it's mostly covers and it's not stuff that I haven't heard before, but, knowing a song by recognizing it is a lot different than knowing the song because you played it, So, there was a little bit of kind of apprehension about like, all right, what am I going to have to learn here? What do I have to do? These guys are good. These guys are real good. They can play. They play a lot of stuff that's, they're known for being that, that playing those songs that are technical, out there, sometimes a little over the top. Like we're playing the third song on the second Genesis album on the second side, a little bit like stuff to you, holy crap,
A little more obscure.
Very sometimes, yeah. And I'm like, what am I going to learn here?
I think it's good that you have that feeling because it shows that you care about how your performance goes.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because one thing about being fearless, it's like, I can wing anything. But there's another thing about, all right, you're concerned enough, like, hey, I want to do a good job here.
Yeah. I mean, there was a confidence there because I'm confident in my skills, but at the same time, there's always that anxiety, like, oh man, I gotta. It's not that I can't play these things. I got to learn them in less than 12 hours. Like that's the hard
short
part.
Day there.
Yeah. So and it was like it wasn't a late evening gig. The gig started at like 4. and it was a 4-hour gig. So I was, and I didn't get home from that first gig until right around midnight. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. There's a couple of songs that I had never heard that I had to learn really quickly. And then some that I knew, for instance, like there was a couple of Rush tunes. Like I knew a couple of Rush tunes that they had played that they had on their list. Mm-hmm. So they put them on a list. There was like a mutual thing. Here's our list. Mm-hmm. What do you know? What do you kind of know? And I sent back to them and, we worked it out. But there's definitely of course you care, and the big thing is you want to be able to get out there and be known as being reliable.
Right.
And, being able to come like that to me, it was very beneficial for me, to not only sit in with some guys who, I feel like I did a good job of keeping up, with mm-hmm. them, like, but also so that they can go and pass on to somebody else. Like, hey, he came through, I want to be known as that person, you know what I mean?
Saving
to
the
be able
day.
to do something like that. Yeah. So it was an interesting 2 very different gigs, mm-hmm. Very, very different gigs. And, I guess, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but there takes a certain professionalism for both of them, for one with these guys who have no experience, it'd be easy for me to just take over that gig in a way, and the guy, bass player who played too, it'd be easy for us to just kind of take over, but we didn't, we just kind of let them do their thing and just kind of back them up. And then the next gig, got to keep up with these guys. It's a completely different professionalism there, but I got to say, I'm pretty proud of myself,
We're proud of you too.
Yeah,
We're very
but
proud.
I don't think that either one of you couldn't do it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that's the people that we are, and that people that we know and roll with would be able to do the same thing. I think.
Yeah, and it brings up a lot.
And that's
of
who
good
you want to
points.
hang out with. That's why you guys are lucky enough to have me.
I was just looking at Smoke and saying, they're pretty lucky, aren't we?
I feel fortunate.
But it was very interesting two gigs. So there that was. But I still need to get paid. They didn't pay me yet.
There's the rub.
So I was gonna say so.
So that's a little bit it's a different subject, but
So how do you approach the whole thing about if you're not getting paid the same night or that night? Let me take a step back. For certain gigs, I'm not the one who books a lot of gigs, but in the few that I've been basically the one that has been responsible for putting it together, I always feel that musician, they need to leave the gig money in hand. I always like that, taking care of business, squared away. In some cases where maybe it's not possible, circumstances, I won't get too much into it, but okay, how do you approach then the follow-up? How long do you wait?
I've been the guy. I've not as much lately, thankfully, but I've been the guy a lot who booked the gig and who handled the PA and was handling getting paid. And I would say the biggest thing is folks should know well before the gig what the status is of money. What are we getting paid? When are we getting paid? Are we getting cash? Or are you coming with a check? Are you waiting? As long as everybody knows beforehand, I think you're cool. I think the problem runs into when somebody shows up and is expecting you to get paid and have that cash, and then you're like, oh no, I have to submit it and get a check from the place, and that's where you can run into some problems. I think personally, I don't know that there is a right way, as much as the right way is that everybody is on the same page beforehand.
I think it's a really, really good point because there are so many different scenarios.
Yeah,
and it doesn't always mean leaving the gig with money in hand. You're right.
Yeah, and me personally, if it's my gig, I'm doing everything I can to make sure everybody's walking out with money. To me, that's the easiest. That's by far the easiest way and has the least hard feelings and confusion and everything. And if that's not going to be the case, then folks need to know that beforehand.
Okay, so let's just say, we're not part of the, we weren't the musical director, we weren't the booker, weren't any part of the organization. We were the hired guns. Leave the gig. Let's just say or it wasn't made explicitly clear when we're getting paid. So, a couple days go by. Haven't heard anything. What's the follow up? How do you guys do?
I'm glad you're talking about this because
That's
this is the
exactly
position
why
I'm in right here.
It's exactly why I'm talking.
Well,
about
here's the interesting thing to me, and I got two things off of this. One, interestingly enough, I wonder which gig did you go into either gig knowing how much you're getting paid?
I went into the second gig having had a number
Yeah,
guaranteed.
yeah,
The first one, no. I knew I was going to get paid, but I didn't know how much it was. Didn't really bother me that much though, because I knew I was kind of like I didn't mind helping out.
Yeah.
This guy, I was cool with whatever. Actually, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed that. He actually paid better than what the guarantee was for the next emergency gig. But
and that's
interestingly enough-
what is always funny to me, right?
Yeah.
Is it's interesting to me that oftentimes it doesn't take that much to get paid. I mean,
Handsomely,
we're
yeah.
talking a paltry amount in terms of standard of living in the United States.
Yeah.
Let's get that out there for anybody who doesn't know.
And especially
this.
in Southern California.
Wake up, because it's a tough way to actually support yourself, let alone a family.
Right.
Going and doing these gigs. It's art. But what's crazy is a lot of times with these kind of gigs at the level that you're at, kind of hustling and going from bar to bar, less art often means more money.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
bad, or indifferent. So the starter gig at the Elks Club, which, by the way, if you've never played at an Elks Club or a KSC Lodge or
VFW
a
or whatever.
VFW or anything like that, that's like, to me, those gigs are like part of the necessary dues paying right there, loading into a hall with some fake plywood siding and
Yeah.
8 local drunks and good, interesting, fun experiences.
They got raffles going on while you're playing and all that
it's like
stuff.
this, like
Yeah.
they got
It's just
three
it's just American.
three
you know,
crock
it's just-
pots going and man,
Cheap
it's-
drinks at the
I love it
bar.
Elks because at
Yeah.
11 o'clock they do like the hour of the elk at 11 and they'll get together and it's this is not trying to be offensive to people in the Elks. I just didn't know it was coming and it was an experience. It's amazing.
See, I didn't get to see that. That didn't happen when I was there.
It's
Although there
awesome.
was a section where we weren't allowed in because we weren't members. So who knows what happened there?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know. This is the order of the water buffalo. So that was like an interesting question I had, and I kind of felt probably that was going to be the answer because you're talking about a 4-piece band versus a 5 or 6-piece band, and
At a bar.
yeah,
I
And
mean,
it's-
it's a place that has a stage and and system and everything like that.
yeah,
Sounds
great
system.
venue,
Great venue. Yeah.
great
Yeah.
venue, great location.
But still a
Great venue, great location, cool music that you like to play versus Elks Club, maybe not as cool a location with more standard songs. I'm not saying that you don't like to play or anything like that, but maybe a more standard selection of songs. It might be surprising to some that quite often that's the gig that pays the
Yeah.
most.
yeah. That or even just like a birthday party.
Oh, parties.
Yeah. Party
Forget
in general.
about
Yeah.
Parties,
Weddings.
weddings.
Corporate gigs.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
back
that's-
to the pay.
Yeah, back to
Back to
Rich
the
is still
pay
sitting there
itself.
going, well,
Yeah,
how
you're
do I
talking
get-
about getting,
When I booked a gig, this is back probably 15 years ago. I was still living in Michigan, and we had a double that day. And the first one was a snowmobile event. So it's in the winter in Michigan where it's cold, like there's snow. And we got there first, found out it was an outdoor gig. Now there's snow on the ground, so they're laying down carpets and they got a tent up. But it's like 20 degrees. And we're like, we can't play. And it's like, oh, you booked the gig. I'm like, didn't know it was going to be outside. So first they had to rent some heaters and we're getting this all done. And we're figuring out how we're running all the stuff around snow. And we play the gig, keep everything, all our instruments in tune, and we get done. I said, all right, we got to bounce because we have another gig in another town. And they're like, okay, well, we have your address and we'll send you a check. And I was like, wait a minute, I gave you all that information. It was for, I'll say it, it was for Polaris. Be careful if you try to get a gig with Polaris. And then they're like, oh, it'd be too, and I'm not a contract guy because, to be honest, a lot of those contracts, come to find out anyways, it takes more for us as just independent musicians or bands to try to sue somebody in small claims court than is worth the money. Mm-hmm. So none of that means much of anything anyways. And they literally pimped us for $1,000. I think we're supposed to get paid $3,000 or something like that, and they're going to pay us $2,000, and we stood out in the cold. And they didn't have it ready then. And I always told the guys at the time, like, man, we play, you get paid. We play, you get paid. And so it put me in a bad situation. Put all of them obviously waiting to get paid in a bad situation. And but it was a big eye-opening experience for me. I don't know that I got anything out of that in terms of here's what we could do different. Because when we talked to my buddy's brother-in-law, who was the only lawyer we knew, he was like, "Good luck. You're not going to get, you know."
Did you get down payment for?
We did not get a down payment.
Was this a band that you played with often, or was it just like a couple of people you hired to play with you?
It was a band that at the time we played a lot.
See, I think that makes a difference. You know, if you're in a band, if the three of us are playing, and that happens, like where we played somewhere, and you know, whoever hired us says, "All right, I'm going to send you a check," I think the three of us would understand and be like, "All right, well, when I see you, I'm going to see you in a week anyway. You can hit me up then." That's different than the situation that I was in.
Yeah.
Where I have never played with these guys. I rarely see them. I see them maybe once or twice a year.
But through references, right? They got your number through
Right.
the circle,
and knowing
the circle
people.
of
Yeah,
musicians,
and yeah. That's the only way that I ever would have contact with them, though. I mean, what happened was afterwards, I just happened to be hanging out inside, but it seems like with one of the guys in the band, it seems like the other guy, the guy who booked it and guaranteed me the money, took off. And I don't know if he maybe thought I took off or whatever. He did message me the next day and said, "Hey man, we owe you this. What's your address?" And I said, "Well, I gave him my address, my mailing address, and I gave him the opportunity to use like an app, Venmo." Where
that's great
do that
nowadays.
Yeah.
Venmo, PayPal, whatever.
Yeah, I said, I use Venmo if you have that, and you can just, whatever. Or here's my mailing address, and I haven't heard anything back since.
Wait,
That's-
how long ago?
Just over a week, last Saturday.
To me,
I mean, it's still kind of like maybe there's a couple days. I don't know.
I
But,
think too, there's probably the assumption with them, like, oh, you know them. This isn't like a total cold, because I know the cats you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that probably there's that understanding, like, well, we kind of know each other. You're not necessarily in the same circle, but they orbit each other.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't sweat that. But I'm whenever
not
there's been a money
really-
thing, I try to make it funny. Like, I always come with the Blues Brothers. Jake, you're out. You're rehabilitated. You got the money you owe us.
Yeah. Well,
but it does warrant a follow up soon, I think.
yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Interestingly, that was one of the, like I said, I was going to go to a gig yesterday to see a friend play. Well, the other band that was playing was that band with their normal drummer. So it would have been, something that I would
opportunity
Yeah.
to kinda, yeah.
But, there was just reasons that I didn't go.
Yeah.
Well,
But
let
I mean,
us
and
know.
I'm not that.
Let us know, because Francis and I will roll.
That's
roll
true.
Down there.
That's true. I got you guys, man.
Yeah,
We'll
We'll take care of
Yeah,
business.
we'll take care of stuff. But but the other thing I'm thinking though is, as I said, these guys are very well known and respected for the musicianship that they have, and they have a following, and a lot of other musicians respect them, and so it did benefit me in other ways besides getting paid.
Right. Now, I'll tell you,
So
I
it kind of
totally
softens the
understand.
blow,
Yeah.
of not getting the cash.
which
Yeah.
which exactly is the situation where
We always talk about the reasons why to take a gig.
reason why I take gig, and that's fine, but even so, like, I've been in a situation where you know how, like, through the circle of friends, through mutual acquaintances, you accept a gig. You don't worry about contracts. You don't worry about down payments. You worry about that because, hey, you know, the circle is legit, right? And then but it did take some prompting to be, oh, shoot, sorry, I meant to do that, and I should have done that. Sorry about it. Here it is. Boom. You know, where as a follow-up is what I'm saying. So that, I mean, you know, you follow up in your own way, but maybe a follow-up sometimes is that reminder. You know how musicians and how we all get busy. We have, you know, incredibly busy lives, and sometimes, you know, it happens to people. Not, you know, not going to come down hard on somebody that makes that mistake, because it happens to everybody at one point or another. So a gentle reminder, hey, you know, just making sure you got my Venmo info or my PayPal info or whatever. But I think it does warrant a follow-up at some point. You know, how soon? It's up to you, how you kind of feel
On the flip side of getting paid too, I was wondering what you know, for different bands, what the expectation is. When I moved here, I was really surprised in Michigan, man. If you were getting paid on that gig, you had better be there at Jump Street to set up, get everything dialed in, and to tear down, and everybody gets paid when the cars are leaving. Not a car is leaving, when all the cars are bouncing. Everybody, like if everybody's getting paid for this gig and you had agreed to pay this gig, then you're coming in. You might just play whatever, the sax, but you're helping carry in subs and lights and set that stuff up, and you better have an idea what to do if you want to get paid. And like, you got to contribute the whole way. I haven't seen that as much out here in any way. Yeah. And to be honest, anymore, you know, in a lot of gigs, like I tear my stuff down and I bounce. I don't expect to get paid at that time. I'm like, I'll pick it up later. Yep. And I bounce. And some don't. So I don't know what you guys feeling.
Can I take a step back though on what you were saying before we got into the whole situation in the cold you were saying?
Oh yeah.
Talking about, I mean, I always feel like depending how we get gigs, there's almost like there's a million ways we get gigs. You know, a lot of times it's through people we know. We get hired through, you know, mutual acquaintances or something like that. But if it's a straight up corporate gig that you know, or they know you, or you know they for whatever reason you're on the scene, you're listed, and they hire you, straight business transaction. To me, it's always appropriate to get a down payment. Only because it's like, look, you know, sometimes things happen, you know, let's say the event doesn't go through, but number one, it shows you're serious about hiring the band, and it's a kind of a fallback where let's just say, hey, the event didn't go through, but at the same time, as professional musicians, we blocked out that day. We have to turn down gigs in order to make sure that we're available for that particular gig. So it's kind of a safety.
Certainly best practice.
Yeah,
for sure.
Best practice.
Yep.
Not always possible, but in cases where it's just a strict business-to-business relationship without any, let's just say, you know,
personal connections. Yeah,
without
which this
personal
one was
connections,
completely out of nowhere contacted, and they asked, "Do you do down payment?" And I was like, "Nah." I don't.
But see, yeah, but you know, it's one of those things where
Mark.
you know, in hindsight, right? It would have been, I think, it would have been better when somebody approaches me like that, straight up business conversation. Yeah, there's always a business approach where yes, down payment, because it secures a lot of things, secures expectation, you know, etc. But now, okay, moving past that, going to what's expected here, like in SoCal, you know, I've always looked out for my own, right? Just if I can help, I'll help. I'll take care of my own stuff if nobody wants to help. But I always thought that, yeah, if somebody has a free hand, somebody has the time, or get there early, or everybody gets there early enough so that we're all prepared, that's the ideal thing. It doesn't happen, what do? You know?
Again, it's just expectations.
Yeah.
Know that, just like you got to know what you're getting paid. How about this? One more question for you. Does everybody have to make the same amount of money?
The easy answer.
That kind of depends also if somebody's bringing a PA. You know, there's,
Yeah.
there's stuff like that. Depends on the equipment that's being brought. I think that
You
that
know-
at least has something partially to do with it.
I think it has a lot to do because it's a lot of extra time and effort. No, the short answer is no. Not everybody has to be paid equally.
That's my answer too. My answer's always been like, tell me what I'm going to make up front. I'll either say yes or for what the expectations are for the gig, and I'll say yes or no. If somebody's making 3 times as much, fine. Like whatever it took to get them there to do it, whether it's they're bringing the PA or their name or they offer a skill that I don't. But just tell me what I'm getting paid. I don't care.
Well, I mean, it's you know, if you want to look at it kind of free market, you know, is there somebody else that we can hire to do something cheaper? You know, there's
Yeah.
always, you know, if you're looking at it that way, then people get paid what they deserve,
Right.
You know, and then they take either what they agree to or don't. So I agree with Francis. It's kind of like, no, you don't need to get paid all the same. You know, maybe it's a little bit different in a band situation where you've all agreed that, you know, this is the chord group that keeps things together, and you know, we're all equally part of this. So maybe everybody gets the equal pay then. But if you're just hiring people, no, I don't think so.
yeah.
Yeah, and I agree.
I think
too.
I deserve the most, actually.
But I've been in a situation where, I've paid somebody. There's a core group of people. You agree to split everything equally, and that's just an understanding, right? Let's just, like, for example, for us, if I ever took something, and we had to split it, we just split down the middle. I don't care if I bring the PA or what. We're just all here.
Right.
But if we had to bring in a sub or bring in an additional, and depending on the role, they're not necessarily going to get an equal cut.
Right.
And plus, I mean, that one person might bring an element, just let's say it's a gig where that person knows more people who will come and
Yeah.
brings more people to buy drinks or pay, the entrance fee to get in, whatever it is, buy tickets. Maybe that person doesn't contribute to the band, the music so much, but contributing in other ways.
I think that's
They
totally
might-
legit too.
Yeah, they might deserve a little bit more just because they brought the heads. They did, other stuff outside of contributing.
And I would
Musically.
be completely down with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of gauge the situation, but just to answer your question straight out, no, it's not always an equal division. No.
Okay, one more. I know I said that was in the last one, but I got one more. How about like benefits, freebie gigs, benefits? My sister's kids having a party and they really want a band, and it's a
We did an
Graduation
earlier episode, right, of reasons to take gigs.
Yeah.
And it's not always about money. I think we've thrown reason out there, which is pretty common. What everybody, I think most working musicians have the similar mindset of: is it going to be great experience? Is it going to provide great contacts? Is it just fun as hell?
right.
Is it paid?
Yeah,
Is
is
it
it
money
paid?
involved?
But see, pay is just a part of that.
Right.
So if you, or it's just a good hang with good friends. So if all those other things are in
Networking.
play and there's just zero pay, I'm like, shit, I'm down. Like, for example, you guys come up with a gig and you say, hey, so and so wants to jam here. Doesn't require much effort. We're all here. We hang anyways. You guys want to jam? Fuck.
Well, that to me is the big thing. Like, and we've talked about this before. Like, if one of the three of us comes up with something, we're like, yeah, we're going to try and do this as a favor, or it'll be fun. Yeah, you do that for
Are
free.
you talking into the mic?
I think so.
I can't tell.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Story of my life. When we, but then what if, you're talking about the sub gig like that. So how do you broach that subject? Somebody just calls and says, hey, are you available this? I got a gig we got to do. Do you ask beforehand,
Yeah.
how much am I getting? Yeah, that's cool. I'm down. Or do you say, well, what's it pay?
Yeah, you got to say it up front.
Where do you go with it? Yeah, I'm saying
Yeah.
best business is one thing. And then there's also the reality. Do you go in and say, because usually I'll just say, yeah, I can do it. or no, I can't. And then what? But I don't go in with that expectation unless it's something I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. I'm strictly doing this for the money, or I'm not doing it. Which we've all been involved.
Well, that's
in
when
that
you say,
kind of
"What am
thing,
I
too.
what am I getting out of
Yeah.
it?" Then, like when I got that call last week, my first thing wasn't, well, how much is it going to pay?
Right.
I mean, the first thing was like, wow, I'm pretty honored that they asked.
Right
Hell
on.
yeah, I want to play with these guys. You know what I mean? The money was secondary. So in that case, I didn't ask. They outright just said, we can guarantee you this much.
Right.
But if
Which
it was
can-
somebody's baby's first birthday party, and I don't really want to do it. I mean, I don't know, how much are you going to give me for this?
Yeah.
But see,
I'll think
I
about
think,
it.
I think you've just laid out a perfect example of if you're booking the gig and you're seeking musicians, it's a cool thing, and it's a good sentiment to say, hey, are you available? This is how much we can pay you. You're kind of laying it all out there, so the understanding is up front. If you're booking the gig, if you're trying to hire, it's a good thing. Maybe you don't know. If you don't know, you say you don't know. Saying, we're hoping to, maybe there's a range. And so, are you cool with that? But yeah, and also I think it depends on how you get the gigs. Now, if it's with a lot of different bands and if it's the same circle, it's kind of like, all right, you kind of, you don't mind staying in the circle, keeping active, and then that's where things start becoming a little more gray. It's like you don't just come up front, well, how much am I getting paid? You could say, yeah, cool, I know these guys. It's a cool jam. I like these, And you could, after you, either accept it or have that, some understanding that you're interested, you can always throw that out there. Yeah. Is it a paid gig?
Yeah.
There are also some people who are just strictly business minded, and just, I mean, I played a pickup gig with a guitarist, and then afterwards, one of the people at the bar approached and said, "Hey, man, you guys are great. Love to have you play at this party I'm having, whatever." And right off the bat, I mean, this is the first time I ever played with this cat, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll do it for $1,200." Just straight up shot him a number. I mean, it was just strictly business from the first part. From no questions. It was just like $1,200, and then the guy who talked to him, he just kind of laughed. He's like, "Ha," and he's like, "Well, that's the price." Like he was straight up just business about it, So
Yeah, you know what I think? I think you always have to gauge the situation. I mean, if that's the band leader, and it's his band, and that's just the way he runs things.
he was just part of a pickup band, and we were all just jamming at a guy called us up and said, "Hey, you guys want to play tonight at this bar?" Sure. And he just put together a bunch of people. We played. We just jammed. We just played some covers and stuff like that, and everybody just did their thing, and we had fun and made a couple bucks off it. But just somebody happened to be there and was just like, "You guys are good." Like that person obviously didn't know that we weren't a band. We were just
Yeah.
jamming together, pick up a jam, and he's like, "We'll do it for $1,200."
Well, that's a bigger. That's
Yeah.
another thing that there's a lot of things that are ancillary to being a musician, and while there's a lot of emotion that goes into craft and art and all of those things, there's I don't want to say an equal amount of emotion, but what can be really personal to people, you start messing with people's money and you can get some crazy reactions. If you're doing a pickup gig, for instance, where maybe you're the one pickup guy and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, we'd like to book you for something." It's my feeling it's completely inappropriate to book your band or your crew when you're not at your gig. You understand? Or
Yeah.
you're at a bar, it's a great bar, and they say, "Man, you were great. We really like seeing you with this band who plays here and that. We'd like to book you." That's kind of a gray area. You don't ever go in looking to steal somebody's gig, my feeling.
So you
Well,
defer to the guy who
You defer to
booked
the
that
dude who booked it.
particular-
Like
Right.
talk
So going
talk
to
the straw boss.
York situation, right? That exact situation, right? You're saying that other guy who said the 1,200 was not.
No, he was not the guy who booked it. No.
Now, see, to me, that's inappropriate. Because you don't know where the guy who booked it, the guy who put it together, he may have other reasons for in his mind, whatever, thinking, no, we can do it for 800. You know what I mean? I'm just saying a big monetary difference could be the difference of, okay, the guy booking booking again for another because this guy who was not part of that says 1,200. You know, he could be thinking 800 as his budget. I'm just throwing numbers out there to demonstrate a point that it's not. I don't think it's appropriate for that guy to spit out that number if he's not the one. He's not the band leader. There should always be at least a band leader that takes care of that business side. To me, if I was approached by the bartender and it was said like that, you guys are great, we'd love to have you, I would say, cool. You know, our band leader over there is, you know, Mr. Joe Blow. Let me send him over to talk to you.
Yeah. To me, it's always if you booked it, if you're the person who booked it, man, it's your gig.
Yeah.
That's-
Straight up. That's what it is.
your
You're
gig,
the
man.
boss for at least for that evening.
For
the
that
way,
evening.
I mean, the way I look at it, whenever
Yes.
somebody calls me, whatever, I'm just an employee, man.
Yeah.
You know, I show up, and what do you want me to do, man? You
Yeah,
know,
that's why that other guy who I assume is another employee should not be speaking for the band,
Right.
quote unquote band. You know, they don't know it's a pickup band, but that's why I always go to the band leader.
but that's probably, like I said, some people strictly think business, and he probably deals a lot like that in other situations, and it could have just been a response that he just gives out all the time.
But
that's
still
kind of ignorant of the situation,
which makes it inappropriate.
right?
I don't care if you're the most experienced person in other facets, but in the moment you have to be appropriate. You have to be business appropriate. You have to be respectful of the band leader's situation. You know, who knows? I mean, if the band leader does the booking all the time, and we're treating it like a business, right? And there's reasons why he would charge X amount versus a higher amount. That's his reason. You got to let him deal with that. Now you've potentially scared away, not you, but I mean the guy potentially scared away the bartender's gig because it was he kind of laughed thinking, ooh, that's just way out of my range here, way out of my budget. See what I mean? So to me that was an inappropriate response.
Right. And yeah. Well,
That's
on the
just
flip
how I
side, he's probably thinking, well, I'm not doing it unless it's worth, and it's not worth it. Fine. If you're not going to pay it, that's the way he's thinking.
But you understand that he
Well,
can't
of course,
speak,
yeah,
he can't
yeah.
speak for them.
No, he
can't
can't
speak
yeah,
for the
of course,
band.
Of course.
The band
But
leader speaks for the band.
There's those types of people out there. It's a hustling world, man, and that's bottom line is pay.
I
And so-
understand, and there'll always be that people, but I always think you got to balance out, respect too.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a respect within business.
Well, I think too, and this happens all the time to musicians, is like taking a long term versus a short term view. Where that gig, every single gig, and I try to tell this to young cats, you go to a gig, you're disappointed. There's not as many people there as you wanted. You don't know whether that, out of the 5 people that are there at that time, if one of them has an amazing gig, an amazing opportunity, and is blown away by your set and books you for the next gig that is amazing. So how you approach that is the same way as you approach when there's, 1,000 people watching you and going crazy. And it's the same with the bar owner to me. Like when you talk about money, yeah, we have an agreed price with this particular club that is going to book us more or has us booked more. And then it's a bad night, and the bar owner comes up and says, man, we had a really rough night and we didn't tip out the waitresses very well because of it, and we didn't make any money in that. I think it is completely appropriate to talk to that bar owner, and between the two of you come up with some kind of reasonable, like, yeah, we're supposed to make $600, but we'll take 400. We're working with you. Our job, because hey, at any venue, we only have one job, and that's to make them money, to help them make money. If they ain't making money, we ain't making money.
Actually, the 3 of us, we were in the exact situation. I was going to bring it up as you were talking. I was going where you're going, right?
Uh-huh.
And I remember it was a brand new venue. It was a slow night. I don't know if it was the neighborhood. They didn't have their marketing down. They hired us, and they always kick us money. But I remember it being a really, really slow night. And I remember you came to us individually saying, "Hey, it is a slow night. You mind if we just kind of like let this one go and kind of talk to the owner, kind of say, hey, look, we'll we'll give you this one, and you just work with us, and just kind of negotiate something.
Yeah.
I remember the
This was-
situation. You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, this was that bar's this owner's second venue.
Right.
And we had played at his first venue
With
often,
success, yeah.
with success,
Yeah.
and often. And he booked us for the second venue, and to keep that relationship,
Yeah.
wanted to float him a deal, and everybody agreed with it. And don't get me wrong, I think you can't just unilaterally make that decision after you've told somebody they're going to make whatever they're going to make.
Yeah.
You can't do that to somebody because you don't know what's coming down.
Right.
But I think also in the back of whoever's booking the gigs,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to remember who's down and who's just
Yeah.
out for themselves, which goes along with the same thing we've talked about. And I know we've talked about this in past episodes. If you get a higher paying gig, but you're already booked, how do you approach, and right, wrong, or everybody's got their own views
Right.
of what's right and wrong in that.
But I definitely appreciated the fact that you just came to us straight up, face to face, said, "Hey, look, here's the situation. This is what I'm thinking. Are you down?" Because could have like, "Nah, man, I really needed I was expecting to get paid tonight."
Yeah.
I could have said that, and I'm sure you would have honored that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you came and you were just straight up, it just makes it like, all right, look, we're all in this together, So it was I think that was a good way to approach it. Where you could have just went to the bar owner and said, "Hey, sorry, man, we're here to get paid. We need to get paid."
And for some bands and in some situations, I'm not saying that's not the right thing.
Yeah.
But I think that it's always important to take the long view,
The big picture.
the big picture as a band, and weigh everything against each other. And to always, always, always remember that you might have a cool technical prog band going in, and that. And if enough people like you that you bring into the bar and are drinking and eating, great. If not, don't, it's all, there's a reason you get paid more to play Brown Eyed Girl. People freaking like it. They like to go and dance to it and drink and eat and make money. So at the end of the line, if musicians want it to be treated like a business, then they got to treat it like a business too. And you have to take that view of, I'm going to do what is required at this gig.
Right. Well, something like that is also advertisement for yourself,
For
in
sure.
a way. Like that gig that you just were talking about. I mean, that's investing advertising for yourself, because that person can go and recommend you to somebody else. Like this $100 or whatever it is that's owed to me. I can just say, well, that's $100 that I pay on advertisement with, 5 other or 4 other really good musicians, plus whoever was in the crowd, to know about me, that I didn't have to take out an ad somewhere or put it on Craigslist or do whatever I needed to do. You know what I mean? So you can think of it like that too. If I'm saying,
Yeah.
I still expect to get money, but I'm just saying, like, that's another way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
It's an investment in advertisement.
But the biggest thing about like all these situations that we're talking about, I think, is communication of the expectations.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And
So important.
just the simple fact that you were communicated that, hey, you are getting paid for this gig, and nothing else was said after that, leads me to say, all right, well, then you need to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, that was
good
interesting.
times.
Make
Yeah.
that money.
Yeah.
that money.
Make that money, man. My money. Well, I had something else to talk about, but I guess we should wait till the next one.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up. Tune
All
Up
right.
and Jam. All the social media sites. If you want to direct email, podcast at tuneupandjam.com. What else is happening?
Twitter.
Twitter. Yeah, all the social media.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook.
Hit us up, man. Email us.
Yeah. Ask some
Call in,
questions.
man. Yeah. Let's get some other discussion. What do you want to
Call
hear?
in.
What
What's
should
our
we
phone
talk
number?
about? Yeah.
give us something to listen to. Send us something of your band. Send us your band.
Yeah, we've had some of that before. We could do that again.
Yeah.
Send us something. We want to play stuff. We want to interact.
It's all on the table. You want to promote, want to help, we want to just keep this.
Or if you have any any feedback, and just tell us how bad we suck, or how bad it is since Chris got back. We liked you guys when it was just Rich and Francis. Now Chris is there. I'm done.
All right, out.
All right.
Bye.